What's up, everybody? Mark with Coffee&Toys here, bringing you a review of the new Netflix series Masters of the Universe Revolution, which debuted this week, like I said, on Netflix. This is going to be a spoiler-heavy review. So if you haven't watched the series, please go over to Netflix, support He-Man and the Masters of the Universe franchise by watching it on Netflix. Go to a friend's house if you don't have Netflix yourself and watch it on theirs. I don't care how you see it. I want you to see this movie, and I want you to drop a comment and a like and let me know what you think of Masters of the Universe Revolution. Because yeah, this is going to be a spoiler-heavy review. I'm going to go through each episode. I'll try to chop up the video so that you guys can, if there's a particular episode you want to hear a review about, you can jump directly to it. But this will be over the entire series of Revolution. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. Okay, let's jump right into this. This is Masters of the Universe Revolution, written and directed by Kevin Smith, and continuing on the Masters of the Universe storyline that we saw, which started with the Netflix series Masters of the Universe Revelation. So, the tagline for Revolution is, "With every revelation comes the promise of revolution." So a very cool tagline to start the series off. Before I get into episode 1, I'm going to take a quick drink of coffee. And we are going to jump right into it right now. So episode 1, Even Four Kings is the title of episode 1. And yeah, if you see me looking over the side, it's just because I have my notes up on the page, and I'm going to be, reading off those every once in a while to remind me what the episodes were in their continuity. So we start off with this mysterious figure entering Subternia. We are presented with Scareglow on his throne, and he says to this mysterious figure, "I don't sense any fear in you, but I will soon make you fearful," all that fun stuff, and he's going to attack and steal this individual's soul and make it part of his collection. We get a nice callback when he does this. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this series, just like there was in Revelation. So if you're interested in those Easter eggs, make sure you watch the video. I'm not going to go over too many of the Easter eggs because there's just so many hidden in the video or in the episodes. But that being said, the mysterious figure is actually revealed to be Prince Adam and Orko, and they are there to try to obtain the souls of Fisto and Clampchamp, because if you remember from Revelation, they were taken over by Skeletor and subsequently killed in action, and Scareglow has their souls, and Adam and Orko are there to try to convince Scareglow to give them back up so that they can have what will eventually amount to a hero's death. Scareglow, of course, says no, and that he is going to enjoy stealing Prince Adam's soul and Orko's as well. We get a nice little quote from Orko that says, "So much for diplomacy." And we have we have Prince Adam transform into He-Man, and I, for one, love this He-Man transformation music they use. It's so great. It arguably might be better than the classic 80s He-Man song in my mind. It's very cool. Every time I hear it, I get goosebumps. Very cool. But He-Man, Adam transforms into He-Man, and we have a battle. Scareglow and his Night Beast or Dark Beast, I can't remember what they're called. They fight He-Man and Orko, and then a blast comes into the top of Subternia, and there's an opening where our heroes all descend down, and there is a major sky battle between Scareglow and his minions against King Randor, who is now sporting some pretty cool power armor, and Andra, who is the new Man-at-Arms, and of course the Eternian Guards, and they are actually arrive in this very large ship which they call the Cloud Crusher, which is this very large transport ship. It's very cool. I actually really hope they make a vehicle of this, but if they did, it'd have to be huge. So who knows? Maybe it'll be a Mattel crowdfund, but man, it's super cool. So this battle goes on, and at the end of the day, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe are triumphant. We do get an appearance from Teela, who is now the new sorceress. And once the battle is finished, they've recovered Clampchamp and Fisto's souls, gotten them away from Scareglow. We go back, and they're on the Cloud Crusher. King Randor gets out of his power armor and collapses, faints. And there's this sense of urgency that they need to get back to the palace on Eternos, or in Eternos. And we're left from that scene. We move on to Skeletor at Snake Mountain, which, of course, if you remember at the end of Revelation, Skeletor was transformed into a weird technologically created nanobots infused from Motherboard, who is here. Skeletor saying, "Praise Motherboard Almighty," and we actually wind up getting revealed that Hordak is the main baddie of this series, or at least so far, and that he is running the show. We go back to Eternos, and King Randor is dying. That is, his physicians knew he was dying. He went on this last battle with He-Man because he wanted to fight side by side with his son. And in the meantime, as he's lying there on his deathbed with Marlena, Adam, and the sorceress Teela, Adam basically says, "What are we going to do about this?" Teela, save him. And it comes to a revelation, I guess, of sorts, that King Randor, like the other fallen heroes, cannot go to Preternia because, if you remember, Evil Lynn, when she had the powers of Castle Grayskull in Revelation, destroyed Eternia completely. So all the heroes have nowhere to go. Their souls have nowhere to go, and they will eventually, as they say in the show, dissipate into nothingness. So with no Preternia to go to, Teela goes and talks to the sorceress in Castle Grayskull, because her soul is still bound. It can't go to, there's no Preternia for the sorceress to go to, but she is locked still to Castle Grayskull, so she doesn't necessarily have to worry about disappearing into the ether. She is still around, and the sorceress tells Teela the only way you're going to be able to possibly bring back Preternia is to harness the power of not only Zor, but you will need the power of Ka, which is the god for the snake men, and Havoc, which is basically the infused power that Skeletor has. You will need all three of those gods' power to be able to put Preternia back together and let the heroes, the fallen heroes, have a place to go. And that would include King Randor. In the meantime, King Randor passes away, which means Adam now has to decide if he is going to take up the mantle of king, and is he going to do that as Prince Adam, or is he going to do that as He-Man? Randor had spoken with Adam and said, you can't be both the sword and the scepter. You have to choose to be one or the other. And Adam's at the funeral, which is also the coronation because they're kind of back to back. And he's given a eulogy for his father, and he says, I don't know if I want to be king. And a voice from the crowd says, then don't accept the crown. And of course, all the citizens start clamoring. And lo and behold, Keldor appears. That's right. Keldor, the half-brother of King Randor, appears in the crowd, and the episode ends. So what I liked about this episode was that we had we started off with, starting off with Scareglow, and a huge hero versus villains battle is always a great way for a hook into a show. Got to see some new characters like, let's see, we saw Buzz-Off. Rio Blast was awesome. Rio Blast is in the series. That was really neat. It was also one of my favorite toys as a kid. He was so wacky, but I loved Rio Blast. Snout Spout, is that his name? I think that's his name. Snout Spout makes an appearance. Ram Man makes an appearance. And it's nice. We just have this huge battle. I like it. We are also, we go through this, King Randor dying, kind of expected. They kind of hinted at that with the previews. But Keldor appearing was very awesome. And Keldor is voiced by none other than one Mr. William Shatner. That is right. Captain Kirk is the voice of Keldor and does a fantastic job. His voice, it's unmistakable. It's Bill Shatner. But he does a great job. It doesn't sound forced. It doesn't sound contrived. It actually seems like he studied the material, and it just doesn't sound like, half-assed. It actually, he does a very good job of being Keldor. With that being said, the episode ends, and we are going to move on to episode 2. All right, we move on to episode 2, which is entitled Ascension. And we start with a flashback to Randor and Keldor as children. They're playing in the king's office in the palace, and they hide. The king comes in, and they're arguing. The king and queen are arguing, and basically we get a little bit of backstory on Keldor. We find out that Keldor is older, but cannot. There's a big political thing where Keldor cannot accept. The king cannot give Keldor the crown because he is not an Eternian. He is from Anwat Gar, which, if you remember, was part of the 2000X series cartoon. They explained that's where Keldor was from, and it would be a huge issue that a person of Anwat Gar who is not an Eternian would be given the crown. So the king is basically saying, we've got to send Keldor away. He cannot. Randor's going to have to be the one. The younger brother's going to have to be the one that actually accepts the crown. And we get that nice backstory. It's great to get that backstory and how they're tying in all the different cartoon series and everything like that. I mean, everything gets tied in so well with this series. Kevin Smith does a wonderful job of doing that. Books, comics, cartoon series, tying it all together. And even the 87 movie. And we'll get into that a little later. So we've come back to the present, and Skeletor basically begins attacking Eternos. This is shortly after Keldor has told Adam not to take the crown. And Skeletor is attacking with this technology from the Horde. And he's infecting citizens with it. And He-Man, Prince Adam changes into He-Man. And they go to attack Skeletor. And in the meantime, Skeletor is battling. Keldor's there helping. Andros, Man-at-Arms now, is helping. And Teela, everyone's basically, there's this huge battle. It's going back and forth. He-Man doesn't want to fight the citizens. Skeletor's infecting the citizens with this nanotechnology and basically making them his servants. He-Man doesn't want to hurt them. And Keldor comes up with the idea, well, maybe we can... Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. During the battle, Skeletor brings on what are called the Old Titans. And basically he touches the ground, and there's old Eternian Titans. If you've seen Titans many times in comics, movies, etc., video games, and they're deep in the ground, and he uses this nanotechnology to revive them. So he's bringing out this huge Titan that's attacking everybody, and Andreas and Keldor are trying to figure out how to stop the Titan. He-Man's going after Skeletor. Skeletor basically plays what a normal Skeletor move. He grabs a child and says, I'm going to infect this child. This is the first salvo of this battle. And he infects the child with the nanobots, nanotechnology, whatever you want to call it, and leaves. In the meantime, Andros and Keldor manage to drop this Titan, get it to fall, and they save the day, basically. Skeletor gets away. He-Man is able to save the child by using the Power Sword's power to remove the nanotechnology. And we find out that nanotechnology actually doesn't hurt He-Man because of the power of Grayskull. So with that being said, we go back to Keldor, and all of the citizens are very thankful to Keldor. And we basically end the episode after the battle. Prince Adam says, I am not going to take the crown. You deserve the true king of Eternia, which should have always been Keldor, and Keldor will be the king of Eternia. And he gets coronated, and we kind of see this little smirk on Keldor's mouth at the end of the episode. So nothing good can be coming of this. And this episode was fun. It's a little bit of a filler episode, but we get a nice battle, and we get a battle between He-Man and Skeletor again. It's very nice. It's fast-paced, good bit of action. And yeah, as far as you know what? I left out an entire part that outside of the battle. So, real quick, let's rewind. Teela, needing the three powers of the ancients, or of the ancient gods, Zor, Ka, and Havoc, goes and visits Granomir. Granomir is in the show. Granomir is dying. We do find out, because Granomir is the one that can give Teela the access to the Ka magic, one of the three gods that she needs. She has Zor, she needs Ka and Havoc. And Granomir's like, I'm dying, I don't want to help anybody, and Evil Lyn appears. Evil Lyn has actually been trying to help Granomir stay alive, kind of nursing him along. And Granomir's like, I'm not going to help you, I'm not going to help you. And eventually, Teela and Evil Lyn who I'm probably just going to call Lynn now because she's not really going by Evil Lynn anymore, convince Granomir to help and to let Tila have access to the Ka power, which she winds up getting in this episode. Fun fact, let me make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. When she gets the power of Ka, she does turn into Snake Tila, and she is very awesome looking. She's really cool. So anyway, so that's the other part. That's the two parts of the episode. We have the battle and Tila trying to get the power of Ka with Granomir. So again, very cool episode. We got these kind of two storylines going on at once. We get to see He-Man and Skeletor battle it out and just kind of really figure out where it's going. And again, the slyness of Keldor becoming king, and you're quickly realizing something's not what it was meant to be. A fun episode, maybe not quite as fun as the first episode, but definitely worth progressing the story. And with that said, let's move on to episode 3 of Masters of the Universe Revolution. Okay, we have made it to episode 3 of Masters of the Universe Revolution, and make sure you like this video if you're enjoying this review. It really helps me out. Let me know in the comments if you guys watched this already and what your thoughts are. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What did you like? What didn't you like? Because I think this is so far has been very, very good, and I'm enjoying doing this review, and a like really helps the channel, so I appreciate it. But that being said, episode 3 is entitled More Things in Heaven and Eternia. And we start the episode out, we are, I don't know if we're on a ship, I can't remember if it's actually on a ship, I believe it is. And we see Stondar. He is being dragged in by the Horde troopers, and he is in front of Hordak. That's right, we get the first appearance of Hordak in this episode. The first real appearance of Hordak. And Stondar's basically saying, I'm going to stop you. You're not going to take over my people. And Hordak just kind of sighs and says, for every world I've conquered, there's always a champion that says this, and that champion tries to face me, and that champion falls, and you will be no different. Special thing for me in this episode, right off the get-go, we get appearances from Grizzlor, Mantenna, and Leech. It was very cool to see all three of them at once, just kind of in the background, standing there. And like I said, Hordak makes this speech. Stondar tries to attack him, and Hordak kills him. Just kills Stondar straight up. Another champion falls. And then Skeletor shows up and kind of goes off the rails a little bit, kind of just being Skeletor, being mouthy to Hordak. And Hordak's just kind of like, you need to shut up before I do something about you. And Skeletor kind of calms down. And then afterwards, they leave the presence of Hordak. We're back at Snake Mountain. And Motherboard just bitch slaps Skeletor and says, if you ever act that way in Hordak's presence again, I will destroy you. Very cool. Very cool to see where Skeletor ranks in this paradigm of power. It's, obviously Hordak, and Hordak's right hand is going to be Motherboard, and Motherboard is not going to put up with this crap from Skeletor. And so we learned throughout this when they were talking that when Keldor was at the getting the coronation, that was in fact Skeletor, and Skeletor that was attacking during the episode 2 battle was actually Motherboard making a projection. So Skeletor was pretending to be Keldor, and Motherboard was a fake Skeletor making the attack. We also get, I can't remember who coins the phrase, but somebody calls, it might have been episode 2, someone calls Skeletor Skeletech, and he just kind of laughs and says, I kind of like that name, I'm going to keep it. So Skeletor is now known as Skeletech, which I'm not a huge fan of the name, but you might hear me through the rest of these I might use both those names interchangeably, but Skeletor, Skeletech, same person. And anyway, so after Skeletor gets smacked around by Motherboard, she leaves, and Skeletor's kind of shaking it off, and he hears Keldor's voice and comes to the realization that Keldor wasn't just a made-up story. Keldor really was Skeletor, and Skeletor has forgotten that he was actually Keldor at one point. And so now we kind of have this split personality, schizophrenic thing going on with Skeletor, where he's hearing Keldor and he's having a conversation with himself, but it's kind of these two personalities, Skeletor and Keldor. And Keldor's kind of helping Skeletor remember, hey, you're Skeletor. You don't take crap from anybody. And so that's an interesting third story we get going on within Revolution. Meanwhile, we go back to Teela, now with the power of Ka, now Snake Teela essentially, and she is sparring with Evil-Lyn. And Evil-Lyn's trying to convince her, hey, you have to keep control of these powers. If you don't, they'll control you. And she's kind of goading Teela on, saying, oh, you like Adam so much, and why don't you just tell him what you love? And, trying to get her to harness the power of Ka more and use it to, because she's going to need it if they're going to battle Skeletor, the nanotechnology, etc. Anyway, we find out from earlier that the Power Sword can make the nanotechnology disappear. And so Duncan and Orko are on a mission to take the Power Sword, which He-Man no longer has. He has given it to Orko, and he goes, you need to find out a way that we can harness the power of the Power Sword to help rid this nanotechnology that Skeletor is using. So they go out and they, Duncan and Orko that is, and they go and find who else? Gwildor. That's right, Gwildor from the 1987 He-Man movie makes an appearance. And we get some great callbacks where Duncan actually says to Gwildor, on our travels throughout the universe, when you helped us with the Cosmic Key, which officially makes the He-Man 1987 movie canon. That's right. The Cosmic Key is referenced, Gwildor's here. The 87 movie is indeed canon, and it's so cool to have that finally tied in. Meanwhile, there's going to be an attack on Snake Mountain, and He-Man has been given I believe it was from Andra, the battle armor. So we are getting battle armor He-Man. You might have seen some pictures of that for previews and whatnot. He does get the battle armor, and he does carry the battle axe. I was very much excited to see this part of the movie because battle armor He-Man was like one of my favorite He-Mans to play with. I never really played with the regular He-Man too much. Once I got battle armor He-Man, that was kind of my guy. I love that action feature. But yeah, battle armor He-Man with axe makes an appearance, and He-Man is taking the fight to Snake Mountain. Let's see, jumping into my notes. Meanwhile, Keldor and Andra are talking about the previous battle that had happened, and Keldor says, we should use this nanotechnology to actually help the citizens protect themselves. Well, he suggests to Andra, is there a way to create something where the nanotechnology won't take them over, but it'll enhance them, it'll make them more powerful? And she's like, I'm going to work on it. And she comes up with this device that's like a bracelet, and they start giving these bracelets to citizens and using what Keldor said, they basically reverse the nanotechnology to empower them but not make them slaves. Meanwhile, Teela, while still in training, so Teela is still in training with Lyn. The citizens are getting these bracelets, and we cut over to Castle Grayskull because Teela's not at Castle Grayskull. She's doing her training, and we see Screech attack Castle Grayskull and seemingly destroy a protective shield around it. And what occurs is Motherboard and the Horde are now going to attack Castle Grayskull, which is undefended, and simultaneously, while that attack is going on, Keldor flips the switch, basically makes all the citizens of Eternos his slaves, revealing that Keldor is indeed Skeletor, and this has been a master plan. Keldor infects the citizens, and Hordak and Motherboard take over Castle Grayskull. The episode ends with Castle Grayskull slowly changing from its classical look to more of what I'm going to call looks like the Castle Grayskull we see in the 87 movie. Very dark, very technology now, but still kind of maintaining that skull face, but it looks very different. Of course, there's like some Horde wings on it as well. What did I think of this episode? Very great. They're really speeding through it. We're seeing what the master plan is. Hordak's plans are coming to fruition. They have taken over Castle Grayskull, and He-Man essentially, is going to lose his power. I can't remember if it happens in this episode or next, but Hordak is ahead, And we end the episode with the bad guys getting the upper hand. Classic story arc. Another great episode with Keldor, Skeletor pulling the strings to get the citizens infected with the nanotechnology. He-Man doesn't have the power sword at all. And really that's the last piece is, they need to find the power sword. That would be kind of the icing on the cake. But again, another great episode, which again transitions us forward into episode 4. All right, we've made it to episode 4 of Masters of the Universe Revelation. And this episode is entitled The Dogs of War. And in my opinion, this is the episode that really kind of pushes us forward through the rest of the series and is an exciting episode overall. So, one thing to note before the episode starts is that the intro changes for this episode. Instead of seeing the classic Castle Grayskull, we actually see it in its new form, looking like it's part of the Horde with that new kind of reminiscent of the 87 movie. And they also kind of changed the Revolution logo to be more, red and dark and technology looking versus what it's been the previous episodes. And yeah, it's even fun that they included that little change up in the intro. And we'll see that again in episode 5 as well. So the intro changes the Grayskull look, which I just mentioned, and He-Man has lost the power of Grayskull now that the Horde has taken it over. Hordak's taken it over. And Adam has been captured, Marlena has been captured, Cringer has been captured. And they are all in the bottom of Castle Grayskull. Skeletor comes by and he does his typical Skeletor gloating, haha, I've beat you, you're locked up, etc., etc. We cut over to Duncan, who is now known as Man-O-War. He has this new gold and white armor. It's very cool. And Lynn and Teela are now going to have to go after the Havoc Staff, which, if you don't know, the Havoc Staff, now that Skeletor is now this technological being, is actually grafted to his arm. So the Havoc Staff is part of Skeletor's body at this point. In the meantime, Skeletor is talking with Keldor, having this thing going on, and they're in Castle Grayskull. And like I mentioned previously, Keldor's kind of telling Skeletor, you don't have to be subservient to Hordak. You are Skeletor. You have the ability to take over. And they're looking at Motherboard, and she's all plugged into Castle Grayskull. She's changed it into this technological castle now. And Keldor kind of goes, yeah, she's just kind of hanging there, isn't she? She can't do anything right now. And kind of plants the thought into Skeletor that something should be done. So, Hordak is in the palace, the Eternos Palace. He is taken over, and Skeletor comes up to him and says, hey, I have a gift for you, leader of the Horde. And, Hordak's like, what? I don't need a gift from you. I mean, Hordak is very good at just putting down Skeletor and, whatnot. And Skeletor's like, well, I think you'll like this one. And Hordak opens it up, and it is Motherboard's head. So Skeletor has killed Motherboard. And of course, this infuriates Hordak. And at the same time, he's like, you're nothing without me, Skeletor. You cannot defeat me. I don't even know why. I've taught you everything. And we get some flashbacks to when Keldor basically met up with Hordak. And again, it's staying in line with what we know from the mythos of Masters of the Universe, that Keldor went to Hordak to learn, not to learn magic, but to learn the technology piece of it and to hone his fighting skills. And we get a brief glimpse of that. So here we are, episode 4, we are going to get Hordak versus Skeletor. And they begin fighting, or right before they begin fighting, there is a great quote from Hordak that says, so let this be our final battle. Again, 1987 quote that Skeletor, from the 1987 movie, the quote that Skeletor used with He-Man is reused in this by Hordak with Skeletor. Very cool. I got very excited when I heard that, and I was just like, immediately, I was like, yep, that's awesome. So, Hordak and Skeletor are fighting each other, and meanwhile, Duncan, Teela, and Lynn are trying to fight off the Horde and the nano citizens of the city. And during this, Hordak is just pummeling Skeletor, and Hordak makes some comment about you're nothing but a tool for me to use, Skeletor. And Skeletor, my goodness, Skeletor has some great one-liners in this show. If nothing else, Skeletor is the comic relief of this show, and I love it so much. Skeletor makes the comment, or rather the quote, he says, "The only tool around here is you." And Mark Hamill delivers on that line so well. I have very much enjoyed Skeletor, Skeletech. I am enjoying Mark Hamill as that character. And I'm going to say right now that Mark Hamill has done a great job of differentiating his voice, in my opinion, better in this series versus when I first heard Skeletor in Revelation, it sounded just like the Joker. But for whatever reason now, I don't know what exactly Mark Hamill has changed, but he sounds, it's Skeletor now. It's not Skeletor from the 80s Filmation, but like it doesn't sound like the Joker anymore. It sounds like a new character. It does sound like Skeletor. At least that's my perception. Drop me a comment and let me know if you agree with me or not. Anyway, so the battle's going on between Hordak and Skeletor's getting more memories during the battle. They have flashbacks, and we see various parts where, especially the part where Hordak gives the Havoc Staff to Skeletor, and that essentially, when he puts his hand on the Havoc Staff, we see his face melt away and he becomes Skeletor. And we see that Hordak actually gave away as a prisoner to King Randor Skeletor. And that was the, essentially what led to the grievances that Skeletor remained against King Randor and subsequently Prince Adam. So the battle goes on, and Skeletor finally starts to get the upper hand because he's remembering all this training he got from Hordak. And I have a note here. It says, Skeletor remembers the past training and remembers that Hordak is all about technology. And it cuts back to present day, and Skeletor says to Hordak, your blindness to magic, I've always known, will be your downfall because you are so focused on technology, you forget that Eternia is a place of magic, and magic is my domain. And with the technology that Skeletor has and his ability in the dark magic, he basically fuses the two together and manages to get the upper hand on Hordak. And now they're battling, and then suddenly we see Skeletor impale Hordak and seemingly kill him. Hordak falls down, he is dead, and Skeletor stands triumphant. And he's standing there, and in the meantime, we see Lynn appear in front of Skeletor, and I thought at this moment that Lynn might switch sides on us and become evil Lynn again. But what she actually does is show up, does some magic, ropes Skeletor's Havoc staff arm up, and split it off. Just straight up cut it off Skeletor. Of course, he cries in agony. It turns back into the true Havoc staff, and Lynn grabs it, and Skeletor's like, I don't need that silly staff to rule Eternia. And she grabs it, makes a portal, and leaves, and takes the staff back to Teela. So Teela now has the power of Ka, she has the Havoc staff, she has the power of Zor, and she takes all three of these powers and begins to combine them, and and she can't control the power. She's trying to control it, and the episode actually ends with her cycling between the sorceress, the snake Teela with the power of Ka, and this kind of crazy Havoc, scary looking beast woman. It's kind of cool because you see all three of these powers cycling back and forth between her, and she can't control it, and that's essentially where the episode leaves us. And of course, episode 4 is fantastic. Like I mentioned, they really use this episode to push everything forward. It kind of happens at a pretty quick clip. The Hordak Skeletor battle is fantastic. I love the flashbacks we get. And I love that we see Skeletor triumph over Hordak and really, become the main bad guy of this series, just like he was in Revelation. Seeing Teela not being able to control the powers is very cool. And of course, we know something's going to have to wrap this up because we're coming up on the last episode. Episode 5 is the final episode of this series. And let's just jump right into episode 5 where episode 4 left off. Okay, we have made it to the final episode. Episode 5 of Masters of the Universe Revolution is entitled The Scepter and the Sword. And again, the intro still has that Horde-looking Castle Grayskull, but they start changing the Horde look of the Revolution logo to kind of the dark magic starts swirling around it, showing that Skeletor is now in charge. Episode starts off, we get a flashback of Teela and Prince Adam training. And it's kind of a cutesy little thing. They're fighting, and she's attacking Prince Adam. He's just kind of ducking and dodging. And he manages to kind of nip her with a heel trip and makes an off-the-cuff joke that, well, if all of my enemies are going to be as talkative as you, I think I'm going to do pretty okay. Because he managed to, while she was talking, giving instruction, he managed to trip her. We go back to the present time, and we see Teela trying to control the three powers of Ka, Havoc, and Zor, and having a hard time. In the meantime, while this is going on, Gwildor shows up, and him and Orko have managed to make the power sword to get the power sword amplified to be able to harness and essentially not only combat the nanotechnology, but to be able to help Teela absorb these three powers, but to maintain them. So Prince Adam comes, he grabs the Sword of Power, he calls on the power of Grayskull, and essentially, I'm trying to remember because there's something I'm missing. He's able to call the power of Grayskull in, even though the Horde still has control of the power of Grayskull. He's able to call it in, and he becomes this new version of He-Man. And it's very, I'm going to call him King He-Man because that's what he reminds me of. He's got very long blonde hair. But anyway, he becomes what I'm going to call King He-Man. And Teela, the sorceress, becomes kind of like this amplified version because she has controlled the three powers. And they do this, and once it happens, they kiss each other. And you kind of get this funny little pan over of all the heroes: Duncan, Andra, Orko, Gwildor, Lynn. And they're all just kind of sitting there kind of looking at him because they're doing this kiss. And finally, Lynn makes this funny joke where she basically says, well, if none of you are going to say it, I'm going to say it. And she starts singing the kissing song, the Adam and Teela, or I guess it's He-Man and Teela sitting in a tree. That song. And it's funny. It kind of breaks the tension for a moment. It's a well-placed part of humor that Kevin Smith activates at in my opinion, the very correct times in Revolution. There's a lot of funniness or funny things that happen, but they happen at appropriate times. None of it really feels forced. That being said, so now we have Skeletor, and he has this new look to him. It's kind of like I said, it's a techno magic kind of thing going on. You know, it got some bright colors in there. Kind of gave me a little bit of Disco Skeletor vibe. I liked it. I did like it. Not entirely that way, but I am enjoying it. So Skeletor's in charge, and he is going to take over the citizens again with this nanotechnology. They are now his to control, and we get this beginning of a massive battle. Of course, that means we're going to have He-Man with his new look taking on Skeletor with his new look, and the heroes are taking on Skeletor, and the big battle ensues. During this, Skeletor revives more of the old Titans. So we have these old Titans, especially this one weird insect-looking one, like centipede almost. And Teela's up in the sky trying to use her powers to stop Skeletor and his nanotechnology. And during that, this ginormous centipede-looking thing is getting ready to attack Teela. Orko and Lynn are trying to protect Teela, and they cannot do it. And from out of nowhere, Granomir appears. And he's got the helmet on, he looks really cool, and he attacks this huge Titan, and they both crash to Earth. And he has defeated the Titan, but Granomir is mortally wounded. Lynn shows up at Granomir's side. We have this nice touching moment where Granomir's dying, and he's like, Lynn, he calls her Good Lynn, which is interesting because I don't know, it's the opposite of evil Lynn. And basically says, you have helped me. I am now a hero. I'm not Granomir the Monstrous. I'm now Granomir the Magnificent once again. And Teela, meanwhile, is able to essentially harness the power of the three gods and recreates Preternia. And again, everything's moving very fast in this episode, similar to episode 4. It's really ramping up, and she is able to recreate Preternia. And then we get to see the heroes, the fallen heroes return. We see King Grayskull, Clamp Champ, Fisto, and various other champions that have fallen in the past. And meanwhile, He-Man and Skeletor are still battling, and Skeletor has gained the upper hand. And Skeletor kind of makes the comment, he's got He-Man pinned down, tied down, and Skeletor says, yes, I know it's cliche, but I have the power. And he brings up his sword to stab him, and it is blocked by none other than King Randor. Of course, King Randor is back now that Preternia has been restored, and King Randor makes the comment, do you need help with this bully, son? And that's a throwback to the beginning of the episode where they had their first battle when he was in the power armor. And yeah, so Randor and He-Man managed to stop Skeletor in his tracks. And King Randor can now return back to Preternia. And He-Man and Skeletor continue to kind of battle it out, even though He-Man now definitely has the upper hand. They're battling, and He-Man does what he should have done probably a long time ago, and he impales Skeletor. Kind of reminiscent to what Skeletor did to Hordak. He-Man impales Skeletor, except this time Skeletor changes back into Keldor. That's right. Keldor has been restored. He has lost his technology. He has lost his magic. And he's just kind of sitting there on the ground afterwards. It kind of heals up. He-Man's able to restore his Keldor's body. And of course, Keldor just kind of takes a sigh and goes, meh. And it's, again, one of those things where I just had to chuckle. It was comedic value added at an appropriate point where Skeletor, now Keldor, knows he is defeated by He-Man. The good guys have won, and we move forward to He-Man making he's addressing the citizens of Eternos, and he says, for too long, Eternos has been ruled by a king, and as of today, that will no longer be the place. The citizens of Eternos are able to now govern themselves. So yes, happy Independence Day. Eternos is now a democracy, and there will be no king and queen. It'll just be the citizens ruling over themselves. So the episode starts wrapping up. We do get an appearance from Andra, who says she's going to run for elected office. Keldor is shown in the depths of Grayskull as a prisoner. And He-Man and Teela are just kind of talking to one another, and she goes, hey, the palace is kind of in ruins from all these battles. Do you want to come live at my place? It's kind of dark. It's kind of dank. There's a guy that lives in the basement that wants to kill us constantly, but hey, you're welcome to live with me. And that was, it was kind of cutesy. And He-Man and Teela are now going to live at Castle Grayskull. The citizens of Eternos are going to be a democracy. And we cut to Zodak and the Cosmic Enforcers. And they are speaking to someone, and that someone turns out to be Lynn. They basically say, with what you've done, you have proved yourself reliable. You have gotten, I don't want to say restitution, that's not the right word. You have made up for your grievances, and we are going to ask that you become part of the Cosmic Enforcers. So Lynn gets her redemption arc completed in this story. It started in Revelation, but it really helps now. And she is going to be part of the Cosmic Enforcers, which is very cool. And the series ends with that, but doesn't quite end. We do get a post-scene credit where we see Hordak in kind of this back-to-tank looking thing. And he's got the stab wound in his chest, and this mysterious figure shows up and says, Horde Prime will restore you, my lord. And it is this female Horde, I don't know if she's a leader, but definitely kind of gives a vibe. And that vibe is, of course, of Despera, I believe is how you say it. Now, or Despara maybe is what it's pronounced as. Now, for those of you that don't know, I guess I should finish up the episode. So, Despera shows up, and as she's removing her helmet, it kind of fades away, so you can't quite see who this female is. But if you know anything about the mythos of Despera, she is actually Andorra. She is Adam's twin sister. And in the what it looks like they're going to do is say that Despera is basically what happened is Hordak stole Andorra and made her his servant. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. She's like a lieutenant or something of that matter. She is going to be the new baddie in whatever comes next in Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe. So the episode ends with her unmasking. We don't see her face, so there's always a chance it might not be Andorra, but pretty sure that's who it's going to be. And yeah, that is the end of the series. So this episode, again, it was going at a very quick clip. The totality of the series was very good. It started off good, got a little slow with episode 2 and 3, and then really picked up with episode 4 and 5. Now, again, it was only 5 episodes, so you got to squeeze a lot in. I mean, this episode was fantastic. They left us, or me anyway, they left me leaving more, wanting to see more. I want to see the next season. I want to see where they're taking this with Prince Adam and his twin sister. Yeah, fantastic. Again, a great battle with Skeletor and He-Man. Seeing Preternia restored. Seeing the fallen heroes restored. Fantastic. Kevin Smith put a great little bow on the end of this on this series with this last episode. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed this thing. I actually enjoyed this series more than I enjoyed Revolution. And I think a lot of people are going to agree with that. But what about you? Drop me a comment and let me know what you think of Revolution, because I thought this was a fantastic series. Anything that was iffy with Revelation has been taken care of in Revolution. Lots of He-Man, lots of heroes, good battles, quick battles, but fulfilling battles. And I just enjoyed all of it. Very good series. I give it a thumbs up. I hope you guys check it out. I hope you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that fun stuff. Because, yeah, I'm diving into... I really enjoyed watching this episode, and I want to hear what you guys have to think, what your guys' thoughts are. Make sure you check out Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe Revelation exclusively on Netflix. But with that said, I'm Mark. You've been watching Coffee with Toys, and I will see you later.